say.
Okay, keep chatting. I'm just doing the Facebook link. Here, one sec.
So yeah, so I'm not used to not doing anything.
I know.
And that for me is quite hard. My kitchen is my domain and I love being in it. And at the moment, for the last week, I haven't managed to get in there. So
you have to go. You have to watch all your old videos from COVID, and you can.
Well, that's well, it's doing catch up actually.
We've still got them. They're on the Shaw website. You can
Really?
Cooking with Debbie. Yeah, Cooking with Debbie. Yeah, very popular. Right. Nearly there. Come on, go live. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I think we're in. Right, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Great, we're making progress. Is Beryl on, by the way? I don't think she has this. Beryl, are you on? No. Oh, okay. Right. Why is it not?
Deborah is. Deborah's on today. Two Deborahs.
Popular name.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. I don't know if anyone watches it on Facebook. So anyway, let's just get on with it. Right. Iris, over to you.
Right, hang on.
Probably today somebody will.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. That's like you take your umbrella out, it doesn't rain. If you don't take it, it does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Judah approaches Joseph to plead for the release of Benjamin, offering himself as a slave to the Egyptian ruler in Benjamin's stead. Upon witnessing his brothers' loyalty to one another, Joseph reveals his identity.
Sorry, pressed the wrong thing. Carry on. Yeah.
Upon witnessing his brothers' loyalty to one another, Joseph reveals his identity to them. I am Joseph, he declares. Is my father still alive? The brothers are overcome by shame and remorse, but Joseph comforts them. It was not you who sent me here, he says to them, but God. It has all been ordained from above to save us and the entire region from famine. The brothers rush back to Canaan with the news. Jacob comes to Egypt with his sons and their families, 70 souls in all, and is reunited with his beloved son after 22 years. On his way to Egypt, he receives a divine promise. Fear not to go down to Egypt, for I will there make of you a great nation. I will go down with you into Egypt, and I will also surely bring you up again. Joseph gathers the wealth of Egypt by selling food and seed during the famine. Pharaoh gives Jacob's family the fertile country of Goshen to settle, and the children of Israel prosper in their Egyptian exile.
Thank you. So thanks to Andrew Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice. Most of us know quite a bit of the story. Well, sorry, we know it anyway, but it's particularly well known across the world. So one of the most obvious questions, which is often asked, is why didn't Joseph attempt to tell his father he was still alive? Yeah, right?
Because he kept on asking that question before.
He keeps on saying, is my father still alive? Why didn't Joseph himself send a message? I understand when he was a slave in Potiphar's house, when he was in prison, he couldn't have done. But once he becomes the second most powerful person in Egypt, or at least when the brothers came the first time round to buy food, send a message, well, keep your father in suspense, in pain.
He wanted to find out whether his brothers were truly sorry.
Yes.
That part. But I mean, I don't understand why he didn't send messengers to find out when he became powerful before the famine.
Right. So there's another side to it also. Maybe he's wondering why his father hasn't tried to find him.
But he thought he was dead.
He doesn't know that though, Joseph, does he? He doesn't know that the brothers took a coat, a goat and whatever. He doesn't know any of that, right?
No, but he must have a pretty good idea that it wouldn't be easy for his father to find him.
Yeah, right. That's definitely true. Yes. But he may also think, he doesn't know his father thinks he's dead. It's a good question. Right. Yes. I don't know what the practicalities would have been. But he might well be wondering why his father hasn't tried to find him. I don't know how easy it would have been to find him, but
Well, they didn't have social media.
they didn't
and
know, but you know what? They found ways of somehow people communicated. I don't know, someone knew someone who knew someone. It's funny how things did spread around. I was about to
Maybe
say
he
That's
was
true.
fearful until he had established himself in Egypt. He was
Yeah.
a bit fearful
yeah,
of Pharaoh, and he wanted to establish himself before,
right.
so he could bring his father up.
Yeah. But just
You
send
know,
a
the
message saying I'm
family.
still alive. Let's have a look. I was about to say something, I forgot what it was. Never mind. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's have a look. Let's go right back to the beginning when the trouble starts with Joseph and his brothers, right?
Oh.
So what happened? Let's see, who'd like to read number 1?
Me?
Shall I
Yeah.
read? Oh,
Go
or is-
on.
Brenda, are you reading?
Yes, okay.
Okay.
His brothers had gone to graze their father's flock near Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, "As you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks in Shechem. Come, I am going to send you to them." "Very well," he replied. So he said to them, "Go and see if all is well with your brothers, with the flocks, and bring word back to me." Then he sent him off to the valley of Hebron.
Okay.
Was it dangerous then to send him off there?
Well, right, let's ask a question. What's going on here exactly? His father sent him to check on his brothers, yes? What
Yeah.
do we know by now about Joseph and his brothers?
They didn't
They
like
weren't
him.
particularly friendly towards each other.
Right.
His
So,
brothers were
They were
jealous of
jealous
him.
of him because he was the favourite, because he
Yeah.
was Rachel's
Yeah.
son.
yeah, does it seem like the smartest move to send him to check on his brothers?
Not really.
So what did Joseph do? If his brothers are all out in the field looking after the sheep or whatever, so what did Joseph do if he was still at home? Was he just hanging around?
He was being treated as the favourite by not being made to go out into the
Like to go
field.
out to work? Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's why his brothers were pissed with him.
Let's give it context. It's all about context nowadays, right? So let's give it context. So the truth is actually, Torah has always been about context. So I don't have a problem with the concept of context, just don't apply it in the wrong situation. Like if the president of Harvard. Anyway, so we've just read about the 2 dreams. What's the first dream? Anyone remember?
Yeah, the brothers would bow down
Okay.
to him.
It was the ears of corn.
Right, thank you. Yeah, the first one was the ears of corn. Right. And Joseph told the dream, and his brother said, "Are you going to reign over us? Will you rule over us?" Question: was there any mention of Jacob and, well, it would have been Rachel or Leah in the first dream? No, right? It was just the
No.
brothers.
Yeah.
Am I the only person that, because of the musical, I can't picture Pharaoh without picturing Elvis Presley? Anyway,
Yeah, you're quite right.
so
It is a bit difficult, Rabbi. It is
Yeah.
Yes.
difficult.
Yeah.
What was the second dream?
The cows.
Sun, moon, and stars.
Right. And he said they were bowing down to me. And he told us, oh, let's have a look at the source. You don't need me to tell you here. Let's read the source. Who'd like to read number 2?
I'll read that.
Okay, Jeff, go on.
Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I have another dream. This time the sun..."
Goodbye.
One sec.
What was that? "I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him. His father kept the matter in mind.
Right. So Joseph just had a very chutzpahdik dream. Listen, you can't control your dreams, but you have to tell your parents, I just dreamt that you're going to bow down to me. And what's very interesting is actually the last phrase. So it's from Vayeshev. And it says, Va'aviv shama es hatavar. Shama is like to keep, to guard, the shomer. So the usual interpretation is that his father, the brothers were angry, but his father was secretly looking forward to the day that Joseph would be powerful. But here it translates as he kept the matter in mind. So what's happened? He tells his father of his dream. His father says, what is this dream? Your mother and I are actually going to bow down on the ground before you? The brothers are jealous, and the father keeps the matter in mind, whatever that means. And then what happens? Jacob sends Joseph to his brothers. And as a result of that, Joseph ends up nearly getting killed, put in a pit, and sold as a slave. So you're Joseph. You're sitting in prison. You've got lots of time, right? I've been a prison chaplain. Why do people become more, like, convert religions and become more fervent, see the light and find God in prison? Because they have lots of time on their hands to contemplate things, right? So Joseph's sitting in prison. He's thinking to himself, how did all this come about? Is there not a distinct possibility that Joseph's going to think to himself, maybe dad really doesn't like me? Why on earth did he send me to Shechem? And in fact, he sent me right after he told me off for the chutzpah of my dream. So I wonder if he really cares about me. Why did he put me in that position? Just a thought. Jacob has form. Jacob himself left home because Esau threatened to kill him. Yeah? And when he was about to meet him, he was very distressed. He knew better than anyone else the dangers of sibling rivalry. Right, let's just go back and recap what Jacob was feeling when he was due to meet Esau after, what was it, 32 years or so? Yeah, 22 years. Go on. Yeah, it was the same 22 years. That's interesting. Also 22 years. How interesting. Never noticed that before. 22 years between Jacob and Esau meeting. Right, let's see what he said. Who'd like to read number 3? Any volunteers? No, there were lots of volunteers before.
Okay, I'll do it.
Go.
Then Yaakov was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that were with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels into 2 camps.
Right, he was greatly afraid and distressed, right? He was afraid of his brother, right? He didn't know what was going to be. So this man who himself had to leave home because his brother wanted to kill him, who even when he met up years later really didn't know what to expect. So he should have empathy with someone who has sibling rivalry. And what does he do? Of all the people to send, and he doesn't just send Joseph to go and tell them dinner's ready. He sends him to go check up on them. Oh, dad sent me to check up on you guys. So what else could Joseph conclude other than that maybe his father didn't really care, put him in danger? Why? Because he told his father he was going to bow down to him. He saw his father's anger, his father rebuked him. Right? How could you suggest your parents would bow down to you? And not only that, but when he says the sun and the moon, if it's referring to, who's it referring to? Rachel? She died. Leah? So there's so many layers to that, pardon the pun. There's so many different strands to that Jacob's very distressed. His son's having, you have to tell me about your dreams that I and what, Leah, your stepmother or your whatever, or what, your dead mother bowing down to you? What kind of sick thing is that? What, what's wrong with you? Get out of my sight. You know what? Go check on your brothers. Get out of my sight. Go do something useful. Yeah? Could be. So it could be the reason Joseph, now, you and I can say to ourselves, rationally speaking, I know what I was going to say before. Did anyone see the story about the Shema from the mosque in Gaza? There was a video clip going around of someone doing Shema. It was very Sephardi style. Shema Yisrael. It sounded very Arabic kind of thing. From a mosque in Gaza. Did anyone see that? I don't know if it was a genuine...
I read a Facebook thing about it, but it seemed right a little
right.
off to me.
Right. So it might have been fake news. to me, it's a bit, look, I don't think you should go on the Temple Mount for halakhic reasons. But I also don't think, not everything that is right has to be done. I have the right to walk down the street with a gold watch. I also may get mugged, leaving aside considerations of sniut, but in terms of human rights, women have the right to walk down the street in microskirts, but they're going to get unwanted attention. You may have a legal right to go to the Temple Mount, but you may also start a riot. So you may well have every right to go into a mosque in Gaza and use the loudspeakers, but I don't think it's very smart. But what I did hear was, if that story was true, that the intention was that they wanted the hostages. How are the hostages going to know that the Israelis are in Gaza? Their captors aren't going to tell them, right? Their captors are probably going to tell them, oh, no one's coming for you, no one cares about you. So how would they give the hostages a morale? What do you call it? I can't think of the word.
Morale
Boost.
boost.
Bit of
Yeah,
hope.
so if this is true, this story, by blasting the Shema through the speakers, the hostages are bound to hear it, because it's a very loud speaker system designed for the whole town to call to prayer, right? If anyone's ever heard a call to prayer, like in Jerusalem stuff, it's quite noisy, actually. It's starting to happen in British cities now. People say, about the muezzin and so on, and it can be quite disruptive. But anyway, so I did hear that the reason was to give hope to the hostages that they should hear the Shema and realize the Israelis have come for them. So I don't know how, Yaakov would have got the message to Yosef. I mean, Yaakov, remember, was quite wealthy, and, I think he probably could have, could have sent people to look for his son. There's ways to do things, right? Yosef doesn't know that Yaakov thinks he's dead, remember. So anyway, you're sitting in prison, you've got too much time to think, right? So he's not thinking rationally. So it could be that he's thinking to himself, Dad clearly gave up on me. He sent me there in the first place, very dodgy circumstances. I've not heard from him since. No one's tried to rescue me, But like the hostages now are probably thinking no one's trying to rescue us now. I don't know what's going on rescue-wise, but the reality is it's probably very difficult, but they don't know that. So it could be. Why would Joseph think that his father's angry? Jacob's a great patriarch. Why on earth would he think that Jacob would be so angry with him that he would take out his anger on him by putting him in danger? Is there any precedent for that? Anyone know the answer to that? Is there any precedent for that?
When
About the dreams.
So the answer, there isn't precedent for people putting people in danger, but there is precedent for Yaakov being very annoyed with his sons. Let's have a look. Right, who'd like to read number 4?
oh yes.
I'll read again then.
Go on.
You have brought trouble to me by making me a stench to the Canaanites and the Perizzites, the people living in this land. We are few in number, and if they join forces against me and attack me, I and my household will be destroyed.
Right. What was this? This is the aftermath of Shem.
Shechem,
Right?
yeah.
Shimon and Levi, right?
Yeah.
And we'll come back to that in shortly. We've talked about this before. It's not just divide. How do you pronounce the word? Visceral.
Visceral.
Thank you. It's not, it's one of those words I've never heard, right? It's a visceral, and, I'm a college graduate, right? A visceral reaction, because later on, he also says the same thing, which we'll see in a moment, right? There's another one. What happens after Rachel dies? Reuben goes, right? There's 2 versions of it. One says he simply moved around the beds in the marital tent. There is a version that says he actually had an affair with Bilhah. Whichever it is, Jacob feels that Reuben is interfering in his marriages, right? Let's have a look. Yeah, who'd like to read that? Number 5, nice and short.
Oh, I'll read it if you like. When Israel was living in that region, Reuben went in and slept with his father's concubine Bilhah, and Israel heard of it.
Okay, this translation is quite explicit, but in other places it just says that he interfered with his father's marital arrangement. So it seems that different nights Jacob would be with different ladies, and Reuben interfered, whatever reasons. So, okay, as a result of that, and interestingly, the verse after that says, and the children of Israel were 12. And the commentaries say that he wasn't rejected for this, Reuben, even though he interfered in his father's marriages. However, something happens, because let's see what happens next. How does he bless him in Vayechi at the end of Bereshis on his deathbed? Right? What blessing does he give to Reuben? Who hasn't read yet? How would you?
About the water going up or down. Yeah.
Go on. I think you're muted, Pam. Oh, we lost you. Hello?
Yeah, we're here.
Hang on, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. And Julian. Unstable as water, you will no longer excel, for you went up unto your father's bed, onto my couch, and defiled it.
Right. So it's interesting. We often hear that Jacob had 12 sons and they were all righteous, and yet he wasn't completely happy with them. Right? Of Reuben, he says on his deathbed, basically, you know, you're no longer the star because you interfered. You messed up my marriage, or you interfered in my marriage. And let's see what he has to say to Shimon and Levi. Do you want to carry on? Go on, that was a short one.
Sure. Shimon and Levi are brothers. Their swords are weapons of violence. Let me not enter their council. Let me not join their assembly. For they have killed men in their anger and hamstrung oxen as they pleased. Cursed be their anger, so fierce, and their fury so cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob and disperse them in Israel.
Is that a blessing or a curse?
Wow.
More like a curse.
A blessing.
I think it's a bit of each.
Which bit?
Yeah, it's a very backhanded blessing. It's like a sort of, stay away from them. They're
There's
big
no
and tough.
blessing there at all.
No, there's no blessing there at all. The only thing is he compliments them on their brotherhood. Right? They work together. Right,
I think
the hamstrung
Reuben-
oxen. Sorry?
I think the previous section on Reuben is fairly clear what he did.
Yeah. It is fairly clear, actually, though it's interesting. It's only alluded to direct. The translation is explicit, but the original Hebrew is slightly more ambiguous. A hamstrung ox, and Rashi says refers to Joseph, who was strong like an ox. So, in last week's Sedra and Mikate, who was the one that, if you recall, stood up and led and ultimately convinced Yaakov that Binyamin should go and they should go back to Egypt? Who basically, and who's the one in this week's Sedra at the beginning that
It
stands
was
up to
Judah,
Joseph?
wasn't it?
Right.
Was it Judah?
So you've got Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, yes?
Wasn't it
He's the
Judah?
fourth.
Wasn't it Judah who stood up?
Yes, it
with-
was.
Yeah.
Right. So he's the fourth son. So how come suddenly he's in the limelight? So
'Cause he stood
one-
up.
Well, but also because Reuben, Shimon, Levi are discredited with Yaakov. Right? We see he's upset with them.
Yeah.
And there's also a very beautiful explanation we talked about before. If you look in last week's Sedra, Reuben says, "Oh, I swear on my life of my sons, I'll bring Binyamin back." And Yaakov's like, "You silly boy, you know, seriously?" And then Judah says, "I will take care of him." And Yaakov says, "Fine." Why does he say fine? What does Yehuda have that Reuben doesn't have? What happened to his sons?
He died.
2 of them died, right?
2 of them.
So Yehuda knows what it is to lose a son. So when Reuben says, "I swear on my son's life," Jacob's like, "You don't mean it." When Yehuda says, "I'll take care of him," Yaakov thinks, "Here's someone that knows what it's like to lose a child. You I can trust." So for all those reasons, it's interesting that Yehuda suddenly becomes the leader. Now, ultimately, when the brothers are reunited with Joseph in this week's Sedra, of course, he says, "You know, I don't take it personally. It was all God's plan," and so on. Did he always feel that way? What did Joseph discuss with his therapist in Egypt? What do you think? Did he have fond memories of his childhood?
Probably not.
What did he call his children?
Doesn't refer to his childhood and his previous life, does he?
Oh,
Well, let's see. What does he call his children?
Version
yes, Manasseh. I
Ranger.
forgot my family or something.
Right, Ephraim and Manasseh. Right. Let's see why Manasseh had his name.
Yes.
Julian, would you like to read?
Joseph named his firstborn Manasseh, saying, "It is because God has made me forget all my trouble and all my father's house."
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Childhood traumas, right? So the Hebrew is ki nishani elokim es amali v'es beis avi. I've forgotten my amal, my toil, and my father's house. That doesn't sound very good, does it?
Mm.
No.
My troubles and my father's house. He could have just said my troubles, and we would have understood. That means problems with his brothers, which ultimately led to slavery. Doesn't seem very happy with dad, does he? So maybe he does believe that his father basically
No,
cast him out.
I don't think he's upset about his father. It's like his father's house, which is the family.
All right, could be, but then that's covered by his troubles, unless his troubles means his slavery. You're right, it's ambiguous, it's definitely ambiguous. But you could say it means his whole family, maybe. Remember, he's sitting there mulling it over and he's thinking, Dad shouted at me about the dreams. Next thing you know, Dad sends me off to see my brothers. Did he not know that they would probably attack me? Now I end up being a slave and no one contacts me for all these years. No one comes to look for me, right? The fact that Jacob thought he was dead, he doesn't know any of that.
I seem to have lost you.
Who?
Well, suddenly everything went quiet.
Oh, no, I just stopped talking. I was thinking.
Why?
Oh, right.
No, it's all right. I was just thinking.
Okay.
So now let's go back to the beginning of Vayigash, which is this week's Sedra, right? Judah is the one that stands up to Joseph.
You've still got
And
the
as
same
a
slide.
Sorry?
You've got the same slide still.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no, that's okay for now. So Judah's the one that stands up to Joseph, and Joseph finally breaks, right? Does he break because he sees Binyamin? What does Judah say to him? Judah says to him, take me as a slave so Binyamin can go free, right? It's a bit of karma here, right? How do you effect teshuvah for a sin, right? One of the ways is to make amends. So here's Yehuda. The brothers sold Joseph into slavery, and now you have Yehuda saying, make me a slave. So there's a kind of a synergy to that. Not a synergy, a symmetry to that. That Joseph thinks, wow, look at this. Not only is he not wanting to enslave me, but actually he's offering to be a slave himself. Maybe he's done teshuvah. Maybe he really understands. Okay, that's one explanation. Or maybe Yehuda suddenly unlocks the key to all this, because let's look at what Yehuda says to Joseph. Right, who'd like to read number 9? Who hasn't read yet?
I haven't read.
Right, Deborah, go for it.
Can you hear
This
me?
is Yehuda. Sorry, yes, we can hear you. This is Judah's recap to Joseph, right? Off you go.
Then our father said, go back and buy a little more food. But we said, we cannot go down. Only if our youngest brother is with us will we go. We cannot see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us. Your servant, my father, said to us, you know that my wife bore me 2 sons. One of them went away from me, and I said, he has surely been torn to pieces, and I have not seen him since. If you take this one from me too, and harm comes to him, you will bring my grey head down to the grave in misery.
Oh, so suddenly Joseph now knows that missing piece of the puzzle that he didn't know until now. Right? When Judah gives him the recap, he says to him, I went to my father and I said, you must let me bring Binyamin. My father said, how can you do that to me? My wife Rachel only gave me 2 sons. One went away. We never saw him since. He's been torn to pieces, we think. So suddenly Joseph's like, oh, wait a minute. He didn't abandon me. He thought something happened to me. He thought I was dead. He didn't know that until now. Right? Suddenly his whole world comes tumbling down or whatever. And, suddenly it's completely different. Right? So it's just an idea. If Joseph has been thinking all these years his dad didn't care about him, and that's why he sent him down to see the brothers, and he hasn't even gone to look for him, and now he finds out actually all these years dad thought I was dead. And suddenly everything just comes crashing down, and he can't take any more what does he do? Let's see. Right, one sec.
He goes to a side room and cries.
Go on,
or
Iris. I
something,
think it's your turn, actually. Go on.
Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone leave my presence." So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers, and he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?"
Right. So the first thing he says doesn't ask about Yehuda or Binyamin, he asks about Jacob, because his whole world's been turned upside down. He thought his father gave up on him, and meanwhile his father thought that he was dead. So his first question is my dad still alive?
Well, he knows
Okay.
about the other brothers because he's already met them.
Yeah, of course, right? But he's not concerned with them. All he wants to know is Jacob still alive, right? So he's not, he's not concerned about their welfare or the fact that, he's about to reveal himself to them. All he cares about is my dad still alive, right? I am Joseph, is my father still alive? Well, that's a lot to take in for the brothers. So does this have to be how you interpret it? No, but it's a novel interpretation Rabbi Sachs brings. So what themes, I mean, it fits with the text. What themes would that sort of highlight? So there's two. The first is tragic misunderstandings, right? We have Isaac and Rebecca. Isaac loves Esau and Rebecca loves Jacob, right? And as a result of that, why? Because she was told by God that the elder will serve the younger. Okay. And she's attached to Jacob. And, we all know what comes out of that. And look, everything, as Joseph says to his brothers, it was all the shirt, right? That doesn't excuse them from what they did, right? So, all these things, it's still very unfortunate. Yes, it's, it was all part of the bigger plan that, whoops, one second, that, Jacob would get the birthright, but still, it's all very, it's lots of tragedy and, the result that he had to flee from his brother Esau, it doesn't really work very well. And of course, the other one is, right, when Rachel steals the idols, and the Torah tells us Jacob didn't know she stole them. When Lavan says who stole them, he says, "Cursed be the person who stole them. They deserve to die." And of course, she dies prematurely, all because of this misunderstanding and bad communication, right? Words are very powerful. Words are very powerful. So that's point number one. It's just, unfortunately, words are very powerful, and misunderstanding and communication. So I'm not saying that Jacob could have communicated with Joseph, or that Joseph could have communicated with Jacob, right? That may not have been possible, but all this miscommunication. And even if Jacob would have just said to Joseph, I'm not upset about your dreams, son. It's okay. It's not your fault. We all have dreams. Can you do me a favor? Can you go check on your brothers? Instead of it coming seemingly as a sort of angry reaction, then maybe Joseph wouldn't have had to think about that for 22 years. The second point is fathers and sons, right? How did, the therapist would have a field day. We said Yitzchak had to live his life knowing his father lifted a knife ready to sacrifice him, right? Yaakov had to live his life knowing that his father loved Esau more than him, right? Leah's sons knew that really Yaakov loved Rachel and her children, right? So when Joseph says, "Does my father really love me?" If that's his thought, my father sent me. What kind of a question is that? Well, the answer is, in our family, it's a very valid question, because if you look at our family history, I may have been the favorite. He gave me a nice coat. If you look at our family history, there's always been strife. There's always been civil. My great-grandfather was ready to slaughter my grandfather, right? My grandfather didn't even like my father. He chose his wicked uncle over him, and my own dad made me the favorite, which made my brothers hate me. And then he shouted at me when I had a dream. So you could forgive him for wondering, how does dad really feel about me? It's not a crazy idea at all. And the answer is that families are complex. What's the one love that is constant? Psalm 27. Ki avi v'imi azavuni v'Hashem. I can't remember the rest of it in Hebrew. My father and mother may forsake me, but the Lord will receive me. So even when our family relationships don't work out, we should know that Hashem loves us. So we've always got the trust in Hashem, at least, just by the way. Right, Freud, of course, placed the whole tension, right, the Oedipus complex, right, the parent-child relationship at the center of psychology of the individual, right? Everyone always jokes about Freud, thought that, what's it called? Yeah, and his relationship with his mother and whatever, right? But, it's complicated, but it doesn't have to have a tragic outcome. The sad thing is Avram did love his son, and Yitzhak did bless Jacob later on, even knowing it was Jacob. And Jacob, of course, loved Joseph, and Joseph didn't know that. And it's all very tragic. So according to this whole story, it's just all very tragic, really. Could all have been avoided with better communication, power of speech. If people would talk to each other more, as is often the case, right? Or perhaps choose their words more carefully. Yaakov shouted at Joseph about his dream, and that's the last time he saw him. I wonder how many times throughout his life Yaakov thought, I wish things would have been different. I wish our last conversation hadn't been sharp words about his dreams. So it just goes to show how careful you have to be. Anyway, there we go. Any thoughts, questions, comments?
Yes,
Okay.
I've got a question. If it's actually about Levi,
Right.
that he from his descendants were Kohanim, and how did that fit in with him? That he had I think it's a reward for having
You're right,
Kohanim.
and he did, and also Reuben ultimately did have the privileges of firstborn until the golden calf incident when they lost it. So the truth is that although they get censored, it's an interesting one. They get censored when it comes to giving the blessings, but the reality is they all get their portion of the land. It says that I don't remember what it says. I think Talmud says that Yaakov was mitaso shlema, his bed was complete. And it says that, unlike Avram had a son, Ishmael, right? Yitzchak had a son, Esau, but Yaakov, all his sons were basically righteous. So notwithstanding his criticism of Reuben and Shimon and Levi, they're not cast outside of the family. So the interesting question is, what? We asked the question, why does Isaac give Esau the blessing? Does he not realize that the guy's a scoundrel, right? One explanation was that he understood that, but he wanted, surely they're the one that need the blessing the most. The one that's going to be the most wayward needs the greatest help. So if Yaakov really has that view of Reuben and Shimon and Levi, is the answer to curse them on his deathbed? Surely the answer is to bless them. That's a good question. Maybe when we get to Vayechi in 2 weeks' time, 1 week, next week. Maybe we'll try to look at that question, actually. See if we can do something on that, on the nature of those blessings. Because, this is it's a very, you would think, if we look in the whole book of Devarim, Moshe has quite harsh words for the children of Israel, right? He says, you did this and you did that and you didn't listen. And interestingly, he only does that towards the end of his life. Rashi says, because the end of your life, people are going to listen to him, but previously they wouldn't have. So the end of your life is the time when, people take, your last words, very seriously, but that could also be, that could swing both ways, as it were. So maybe that's a good one for next week. All right.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Lisa. Have you finished school?
Thank you.
Work? Oh, it's not.
Hiya. Today is my last day before the holidays.
Ah, very nice. Okay. Enjoy. Have a good break.
Thank you.
Next week is bank holiday, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like we've missed quite a lot of. I don't know. Maybe like on Sunday, I'll see who's around, and if people are around, we'll have a class. We've missed quite a few. We'll see. Let's play it by ear.
Is that the 25th or the 26th?
Yeah. No, it's the
25th.
25th.
26.
Oh, 1 second.
Oh, it's
No. Oh no, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
No, forget that. I'm gonna be driving around delivering biscuits to people. No, we won't be able to do next Monday. That's a shame. Yeah, we'll have to skip next Monday.
So 26th.
We'll all have
okay, but
we'll all have a holiday. We'll all have a holiday. The week after we'll play it by ear. Let's see what people are doing. All right. Yes, next week definitely not. I'll be doing deliveries. Yeah. Okie dokie.
Thank you.
Right. All right.
Thank you.
Have a good week, everyone.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Nice to see
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good week.